have been one minute each, so I'll give you 1.5 minutes each. 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Lascon Corla. Minister, as Fianna Fáil spokesperson on disability, I thank the Count Corla for selecting this topical issue, and indeed it is very topical and very serious. I'd like to first of all acknowledge the fantastic work that RehabCare does for 3,000 people nationally in 117 locations. The one most familiar to me is the one in Bantry in Cork South West, and I would sincerely like to acknowledge the fantastic work done there. Minister, I understand that yourself and Minister Harris and the HSE met with RehabCare last week after, may I add, many attempts of RehabCare asking to meet with you. I understand that there is also to be a further meeting tomorrow, and I sincerely hope, Minister, that this brings a resolution that will ensure these vital services can continue. Minister, behind every service user is a family, so please keep that in mind as you meet these people, and may I humbly suggest you bring your chequebook with you and try and resolve this issue. I'll hand over to my colleague.
Thank you very much, Lascon Corla. Well, Minister, we are, I would say, good friends at this stage in terms of our engagements and our discussions so far in terms of people with disabilities. And our rehab service across Cavan Monaghan is no different than the wonderful service that you've seen in the Holy Family School, the wonderful service that you're very familiar with in Annalee House in Cootehill as well, and the broad range of facilities like in Bailieborough there is a rehab care centre, there is one in Cavan, and I actually believe that Cavan Monaghan might have one of the greatest service users in the country, well, one of the highest anyway. And, you know, again we see people with disabilities being almost sidelined and seen as not a priority. Now, of course, I'm not talking about you in that sense, because I know you do have a deep understanding and appreciation for people with disabilities and how important respite care is, how important rehab care is, whether it be the day service, whether it be the residential service. These are all services that families cannot function without, and families are very dependent on. And as we know, most families are the 24-hour service themselves, 7 days a week, 12 months of the year. And that respite care, that day service, that residential service for an adult perhaps with disabilities is hugely important. And it was most unfortunate that we saw what we saw last week in terms of the rehab, how far staff and management were pushed to have to write to families to tell them this service was on the verge of collapse. And I hope that you will be coming today to the Dáil Chamber with good news, positive news, that families can gain some comfort from.
Minister has...
Lascon Corla, first of all, I want to thank Deputy Margaret Murphy O'Mahoney and Deputy Niamh Smith for raising this issue, because I know genuinely they care passionately about disabilities and particularly have been campaigning for the last number of years in relation to being very supportive. So I want to thank the deputies for raising this important issue and for giving me the opportunity to outline the position in relation to rehab care. This government is committed to providing services and supports to people with disabilities, which will empower them to live independent lives, provide greater independence in accessing the services they choose, and enhance their ability to tailor the supports required to meet their needs and plan their lives. This commitment is outlined in the programme for a partnership government. It is guided by two principles, Lascon Corla: equality of opportunity and improving the quality of life for all people with disabilities. Significant resources have been invested by the health sector in the disability services over the past number of years. This year alone, the Health Service Executive has allocated £1.9 billion to Disability Services Programme. That's an increase of £346 million since 2016. This is the highest ever in the history of our state. And again, I want to thank our two colleagues for their support, and I recognise that support. At the outset, I also want to acknowledge the important services and the commitment of staff to people with disabilities and their families provided by Rehab. Rehab provides short-term and long-term services to young people and adults with physical, sensory and intellectual disabilities, mental health difficulties, autism and acquired brain injury. Services are coordinated through Rehab's 3 service delivery divisions: RehabCare, the National Learning Network and Rehab Enterprises. RehabCare provides health and social care support to about 3,000 adults and children each year, enabling them to become active members within their own communities, to achieve life goals and experience new opportunities. The National Learning Network provides a range of flexible training courses and support services for some 5,000 students from the age of 16 upwards who need specialist support, such as job seekers and people with an illness or disability, in 50 centres around the country. The National Learning Network provides a wide range of vocational training and education programmes, which are funded by Solace, as well as rehab training funded by the HSE. The rehab enterprises do not receive funding from the HSE. The rehab group is funded by the HSE under Section 39 of the Health Act and operates in all 9 HSE CHO areas. Services are provided through a service agreement which is signed on an annual basis and reviewed continually. The 2019 budget allocation is £56.1 million. That was an increase of £1 million, by the way. Minister Harris and I held a joint meeting last Tuesday with Rehab and the HSE. And of course, I myself have met the Rehab themselves and many families over the last 3 years. Arising from reported financial challenges, Rehab and the HSE have committed to work intensively with a view to understanding its financial position and cost base. My primary concern is to ensure the continuity of disability services for service users and their families that are delivered in line with strong governance mechanisms in a cost-effective and equitable manner consistent with care and support needs. Rehab have agreed not to issue a notice of termination pending the outcome of this intensive work with the HSE. Both I and Minister Harris have committed to meeting with Rehab and the HSE tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th of May at 5 o'clock. And yes, the answer is I am pushing this agenda very, very strongly, and I want to thank Minister Simon Harris for his support.
Minister, Deputy, 1 minute.
1 minute. Thank you, Lascon Corla. Minister, I'm glad that you acknowledge the fantastic work done by RehabCare, but you're still not answering my question. And I know it's hard to preempt the meeting tomorrow, but I was really hoping that you'd stand up here today and say that you would continue funding this fantastic organisation. So I am a bit disappointed with your response. Minister, can I ask you, do you think that the HSE could provide the services that Rehab are doing at the moment? And are you prepared to say that they would provide a better service? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Well, Minister, quite like my colleague has said here, Deputy Margaret O'Mahoney, that rehab services, what they do for people on the ground is magnificent. And it in no small way is a huge relief and support to families. And again, the response is, I suppose, watery is how we would describe it in Cavan Monaghan. We have nothing tangible to go back to our families with. We have nothing tangible to go back to management of rehab care across Cavan Monaghan. But I do appreciate that perhaps it's difficult for you to give anything concrete ahead of that meeting tomorrow. I would ask, though, Minister, I would ask that, everything be done to ensure that these services continue, that there is no break in the service, that both the day service and the residential services, because we have seen recently how people with disabilities and service users to places like Steadfast House in Carrickmacross are seeing ongoing charges brought on their daily service, whether it be to get their bus, their lunch, and there seems to be all these sneaky ways of bringing new charges in that, of course, takes away from the little bit of social protection that these people have. So again, I would reiterate the point. RehabCare is providing a fantastic service, Minister, and everything should be done to see the continuity of that.
Can I thank Niamh Smith and Margaret Murphy O'Mahoney again for their support on this particular issue. And of course, the answer is I support Rehab and I'm supporting them in government. And that's my clear position. And I also agree very strongly. My job is to look after people with disabilities. I'm not interested in any other aspect of the issue. The families are my job. And of course, we need to see tangible results. And I'm hoping to have that tomorrow. Can I say as well that in the HSE's 2019 budget I mentioned earlier on, this year, £1.9 billion has been allocated to the Disability Services Programme. And as I said, that's an increase of £346 million during the lifetime of this government. This fund will fund the provision of a wide and complex range of services and supports to people with disabilities. Additional funding this year has been focused on a number of priority areas arising on the ongoing demographic changes, and the population is increasing. These include the expansion of community disability services to meet the needs of school leavers, the 100 new therapy posts to address the assessment of need waiting lists for children with disabilities, personal assistance and home support service hours, residential places and respite places. At our meeting last Tuesday, and with a very tough, difficult, straight meeting with Rehab, but both Rehab and the HSE remain committed to working intensively with a view to making substantive progress in reaching a solution to the issue that I have outlined already. Minister Harris and I are working very closely together on this issue, and I have also raised it at a government level as well. And a further meeting is scheduled tomorrow, and I hope we'll see major progress in relation to the genuine concerns that you have raised in this debate. As I said at Ascancola, my focus is on the people with disabilities and their families, and I want to see the funding going there, and I want to see them to get the maximum support. Thank you.
We move on to the second, and the names of Deputies Function, McGuinness and Aylward, and in the absence